Hi guys and girls, how you going? Mark Hummer here again. Of course, we're talking photography and we're talking a lot of Nikon products. Now, what am I going to show you through today? Well, I've made a few recent acquisitions of, I think I've already showed you through the 135 1.8 Sigma lens that I've been using on my Z7 and Z6. But I've also got a new acquisition here. It's the 200 to 400 F4. Now this is the F style lens and I'm going to be using it on the Nikon Z system. I'm going to show you how that all operates and I'll give you some reviewed photos and my experiences with it. So it's a little bit of an interesting story why I acquired it, and I'll just show you as I go through the video. So firstly, we want to talk about things like the versatility of a lens like this. Now you can see it here, it's all covered up and it's a very big item, a bit of a bazooka really, and very heavy. I think it's about 3 kilos or so, and very weighty to bring around. So it's not something you just sort of throw in your camera bag and take with you. It's a purpose-built unit. You're going out, you're doing either your sports action or you're doing your wildlife photography. For me personally, 99% of the time I'm bringing a big telephoto zoom out is for animals. I like to photo birds, whether it be cats and dogs and other little creatures, but I'll catch them on the fly, often taking my time stalking them, as it were, to speak, because I don't like the idea of my approaching the creature and then startling it. What I tend to do is perch myself, position, set everything up, investigate what the animals are doing, and I'll sit in position and wait for them pretty much to come to me, and that way I can get really in tight and close to them and I don't spook them by any sudden movements. So just give you an idea of size comparison of this unit. I'll unpack it a bit. It's not an unboxing video because I've had it for some time now, and what I've been up to is taking some wildlife photos. They have this very protective lens hood on it, and it's a wise decision too because it's a very expensive unit. All the components of it are quite expensive, so you want to make sure you're well padded and make sure it's safe. So here we have the lens hood on it. Now I'll just take that off initially, just so you can get an idea of the actual lens itself without all the accessories. So here we have the actual lens itself, and you can see here it's quite a reasonable unit and very weighty. So of course you've got a little lens cap here. It is the F mount that's protected. You have the collar and mount. Now as you can see, I've got a very long Manfrotto system on it here, and the extra length here is great because it enables you then to slide it up and down on your tripod or monopod and make sure you get the perfect balance, because it does weigh so much you need all that help and scope you can get. So anyway, just a perspective of the actual unit itself is about here, and if I compare that, and I'll just slightly tilt it so it'll stay safe, I'll compare that with this here. Now this lens I'm using on an FTZ adapter 2 on my Z system, and this lens here is the 135 1.8 Sigma Prime. Now when you see them, this is actually a very heavy lens too. Well, it is for a prime that I've been using mostly for portraits, but that there at 135 is yay big, and then you can see here in comparison how much bigger this is. This here's got the lens hood on. Now when I put the lens hood on this one, you can see that it's quite massive. I do like the lens hood. The lens hood cover is really good because what it does gives you a lot of depth of protection, so you're never going to actually bump or bang the main element in the front. But apart from that, of course, it provides shade off on the glass, which is terrific, but it does make it very much more cumbersome and difficult. So obviously you may want to take that off when you're transporting it. Makes it a lot more sensible. So as I take the hood off to illustrate again, the lens is a lot easier to cope with here when I'm in a confined space without that hood on. But I'll just run you through why we've got it here and what we're doing with it. So this lens here, I'll make it safe. This was only for illustrative purposes to give you a size comparison. So comparing the two together here, you can see that this one looks quite modest and small in comparison. And again, this now has the hood off. So if I now take the hood off this one, I'll just do it very carefully. There we go. It's got the little cap protector on it, but now when you see them, you can see that it's actually tiny in comparison. So the 135 to a 200 to 400 is a huge difference in size of the lens, and of course the weight too. Now this one of course is a portrait lens, and I use that predominantly for headshots, etc. So on this little modest little Nikon Z that I have here, the Z7, you can see I've got the FTZ adapter on it. That's because I've just taken the Sigma off, and that's required because that's an F mount as well. This is an F mount lens, it's not the Z mount, so therefore you've got to take that in consideration. But here's what we're doing that's a little bit different. When you mount the camera to the lens, really what you're doing is the camera is the accessory. The lens is actually where all the weight and body is. So here it's very, very important that whenever you handle it, you're handling it via the lens. Because if you try and just hold it with the camera alone, you're probably going to rip the mount clean off because of the excessive weight up here. This thing weighs less than a kilo, like 700 grams. This is about 3.5 kilos. So you can see where the priority needs to go in the handling. So this is why I have a nice big collar and mount. It gives some sort of security for handling it. You can do it handheld. I mean, it is possible to take shots with it handheld, but it's so heavy. I mean, you're going to get a bit of wobble. Now, fortunately, we are blessed with Nikon that does have in-body stabilization, which is very effective, and the lens itself, of course, also has various options for stabilization in the lens. So the two combined gives you a lot of stabilization. So you can possibly take it handheld, but I never advise that because it's just a wearisome factor. Even if you get a few decent photos out of it by doing that, you're going to get tired so quick. You're going to get fed up and very disappointed with the overall experience. So this is where you need some sort of support. Now initially, if you're going to take this out for a couple of hours shooting, you're going to want at least a monopod. Now this is not just a small monopod, this is a Leaf-Frodo monopod, sorry. It's one of their biggest ones. It's the MP 365C. So it's quite a heavy one. It's a carbon fiber, so that helps a little bit with the weight. But believe me, when you're carrying 4.5 kilos of camera and lens around, whatever the weight the monopod is pretty much irrelevant. It's not going to make a lot of difference. But it's good and versatile for whatever I want to use. Now I have some cheap and small monopods when I'm just taking portrait shots, and it's light and easy to carry in the bag. But when I'm going to shooting with a beast like this or something similar, you're going to want something really sturdy and strong. And this is, as you can see, it's quite thick. It goes very long. It's I think it's about 6'6" or 7 foot in length when it's fully extended, and it's very, very powerful and takes the weight no problem at all. But the other factor you need to consider when you're shooting with a heavy and a long telephoto lens is the ball head, the actual mount. So it's very important that the mounting arrangement you use, whatever that be, whatever ball head or video head you use, be extremely strong. It's got to carry that weight. It's got to be able to support it. And when you release the tension and you want to maneuver this around, you don't want it just collapsing under the weight of the lens and camera. So you need something that has a bit of guts to it that'll actually hold up and keep its retention of its control. Now this is an interesting one, this Manfrotto one here, because what this is a combination video and photography ball head. So I bought it for that reason, because it was very versatile, but it is working exceptionally well that you can click it over to the video mode, and then with video mode all you get is basically left to right and up and down, and then when you put it onto photography mode and you loosen up the tension, you can pretty much go anywhere with it in any position you like. So it gives you sort of versatility of control and options. So here we are in the photo mode. I can have it going portrait, or I can have it going horizontal. I can get any angle that I wish, and that's pretty useful in a camera photo setup like that with wildlife. However, I would recommend generally that you just leave it on the video mode, and what you can do is you can just use the collar to move it around. So how can I do? I'll show you that. Let me illustrate, please. So just bear with me while I get some height, and I'll slide this on. I have to be very careful because I'm holding multiple things at once. We'll try and get this on without any great disaster. This is going to look a bit more awkward than it really is, and that's simply because I'm doing this sitting down and I'm not very comfortable. But here we go, we've got it mounted on. As you can see, that's very sturdy, that's fine, and it's going to be very strong. When I want to loosen the tension off, always grab the mount or part of the camera so it doesn't just sag and drop forward very quickly. But once you get the right amount of tension on that you're comfortable with that camera, now I can use that very efficiently, and I can change my position and rotate it around, and it's quite functional and usable. So that actually does work very well. Again, the length thing here is very important in the mount because it gives you the opportunity of balance. So if I loosen that off a little bit, I'll just show you what I'm referring to. Now if I bring it back here all the way here, you'll see now that it's going to be back heavy. So when I loosen the tension, you can see it's going to drop backwards. It's actually not too bad a balance, but it will. The further back you get it, obviously the lens is pointing forward, so the further back you get this, the better balance it is. And that length of mount does give you all that option to do just that. So if I had a smaller mount and I had it just positioned right in the middle there, well, what's going to happen now is this is going to sag forward. You see that straight away? Just sags straight forward because I can't get the camera back far enough. So having that very, very long mounting arrangement enables me the control that I want to make sure it's always perfectly balanced, and that way it's not just flopping forward on me or I'm getting a startle. The other reason I have this little hand strap on is that I can put that around my wrist, and if I should let go or slip, at least I've got some way of retaining the unit so it doesn't crash to the ground. So that's just like a backup little sling that I'll use sometimes. But here, once you've got the thing actually balanced really good, it's actually very practical and comfortable to use. And you're going to get a lot more stable shots when you're photoing and you've got a nice stable platform for it and it's well balanced. So do think about getting the extra long mount on your collar here, because that's really important to get that comfortable factor. Now I was talking about you can go portrait or whatever. I'm not going to use this sort of a system in order to get it going into a vertical mode. What I'm going to do is use the collar. So if you just undo the collar, see how you can just rotate the camera, fix it in there, and it'll stay in that position. Oh, there we go. It'll stay in that position and you'll be able to take your portrait photos anytime you like. And when you want to go back to horizontal, you're just rotating the collar rather than the whole camera and lens body. So that keeps everything well balanced and quick to exchange. So remember, it's just the collar relaxing to go portrait or horizontal mode. Do not be tempted to use the ball head to do that, because what it'll do is as the camera and lens comes to the side, it'll also throw the whole balance out. It'll tend to want to lean over to one side. This keeps it perfectly in tune with the monopod and keeps the balance really good. And of course it's that quick speedy exchange thing that makes life really easy. So I just sort of run you through those minor details. Make sure you get a ball head that's capable and suitable, and also make sure that the monopod is very strong and stable as well, because if it's got any flex in the shaft, that's also not going to help with your confidence and or the steadiness of the shot. So there is more to show, so I'll just try and get this out now safely, if I can. Here we go, come forward. You must be very careful when you're removing, because it wouldn't take too much at all to drop that camera to the ground because it's so weighty. So when you're using a monopod, be very slow and cautious in your experiences when you're using it. Now the other thing I wanted to show you also was the suitable tripod. So if I can bring this in here and get it around my chair, I'll just show you this tripod. It's a Vanguard tripod. It's a very heavy, sturdy one. I have shown these before, so I don't think I need to go into too much explanation of this particular unit. But what I am going to do is just open her up a bit, bring it up a little bit higher so I can show you what I've got going on here. You can see it a bit better. Oh, looks like I moved my microphone. So here we have it here. And this system here is exactly for this unit again. So I don't need to have that collar in there. I'll just remove this Manfrotto system. So I'm just looking backwards all the time, so everything looks a bit odd. We'll try and get this one into the actual tripod now. See if it all mounts the same direction. It does, great. Yes, unfortunately sometimes I'll mount a little bit left or a little bit right, depending on which way you've mounted the brackets. They're not always consistent. But there we go, we've got the unit in now. I'm just going to bring that back a bit, so again we've got that balance. And now as I release the tension, I will just release the lock and tension on this, you'll see that we're going to this rocking system till we find balance. Is that perfectly balanced? Well, it actually is. So if I just increase a little bit of tension now into it, that's actually fully safe and usable now anytime I want to take photos. And see, on the thing on a tripod is you can't worry about letting go. I'm not now concerned or frightened in any way of dropping the camera. The tripod's very powerful. It's a very weighty tripod, and of course I know that with this nice video head it's going to be very safe. So again, you might say, oh, that's alright, it's a video head, but that's only going to help you, this way and up and down. What if you want to go on angles or go portrait mode? Well, again, it's all about the collar. If you want to go and do a portrait style shot, you're using the collar to do that, and you're not changing all your balance. So it keeps everything very simple and always in the right position. So again, using this collar arrangement, very important for changing your angle of view. And secondly, get a ball head, or in this case a video head. Get one that's very strong and suitable for the weight of your lens and camera combination. And once you've got all that sorted, all your animal photography or sports action is going to be as simple as anything and a lot more enjoyable and fun. I would highly recommend a tripod over the monopod anytime, but for sheer practicality and being able to move around, the monopod is very convenient, and it's something you can pack into your bag very simply, where the heavy tripod becomes very cumbersome. Now on that subject of bags, for example, don't bother trying to put this in a little backpack that you've got over your shoulder. I usually use very large packed bags like this sort of thing, this sort of a size, zip. It'll have wheels on the bottom. You might be able to just pick them up there in the camera, and I can trolley that along and use that for taking my camera and all my accessories with me. The other accessories I will use with an equipment like this, and excuse me if I just put this a bit more to the side, position that so it's nice and safe and locked in. I don't kick it over. I will use flash. Now you might say flash on a lens that's 400 long, where you're joking, who you're fooling, you'll never get the light onto them. Well, funny enough, you can. See, by mounting the flash simply to the top of the camera there, you can actually get some advantage in flash if the subject is relatively close to you, because not always am I filming or photoing something that's 100 yards into the distance. Sometimes they're only 3 to 4 meters away from me, and then that speed light's going to be really handy to get a bit of extra light on them. So don't dismiss that altogether as worthless with a long zoom. They actually still do work and are very efficient. The other option is, of course, that you don't have to rely solely on an on-camera flash, which is of course only useful when the subject's pretty close by. When that's not convenient, and it's just the distance is too much of an issue, by all means grab yourself, as I have here, a little tripod, or in this case it's a camera stand, and you can use that to mount a flash, and you put it in position close to where you believe the subject will be. So you can often anticipate. If you sit here and you watch the subject long enough, let's say for example it's birds or maybe cats or dogs, you can see where they're generally playing or moving or coming and going from. It's usually a little location that they're comfortable with. If you're able to pay attention to that, you sneak your little speed light and set it up and turn it on very close by to where they're going to be and point it in that direction. And if you've got a nice soft little filter over it, that's also going to help. You can disperse the light softly. And then using an automatic triggering arrangement, you can then trigger that flash, and that makes it great because you get light exactly onto the subject. You might only get a few photos because you may startle the subjects, but at least the ones you do get are going to be amazing. So this is where taking your time and not just rushing into the photo, but getting everything set up perfect and making sure all your settings are right. And then when you click that button, bang, 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 a few quick bursts, you'll get some beautiful well-lit shots as well. So again, don't dismiss using speed lights with long lenses. I know it's a little bit more inconvenient, or you might be concerned of startling the creature, but if you get that 1 or 2 perfect shots in straight away early, then all the rest of the shooting is irrelevant anyway. You've already got your shot. So don't be scared to use the speed lights. That's what I'm really encouraging, and also automatic triggers are very useful. So I'll show you a few samples of the birds and various subjects that I've taken photos of, and just to show that it all functions and works well. The reason I'm making the video is really to illustrate that these older F-mount lenses are great value on the Z system. Z system doesn't have any long lenses as yet. I think the longest we have is just available as of now is the 70 to 200. But be honest with you, when it comes to wildlife and sports action, 200 mils is not very long. That's quite a modest length. So having up to 400 on this one is very convenient. The other interesting thing about this lens is it will shoot pretty close proximity. So I think you get about 2.5 meters you can get focus in, which means you can be quite close to a subject. So the 200 mil end of this is actually quite usable as well, and very versatile and helpful. I found with this personally that the focusing is extremely good. And at f4, and it's an f4 lens, it'll obviously go to f16 or something, but at f4 it's what I bought it for. I didn't buy an f4 lens so I could shoot it at 5.6 or f8. Sometimes you're going to need to, but the f4 is because I want to shoot it at its wide open aperture and get as much light in and shallow depth of field as possible. And I can assure you that shooting it at f4 you do get beautiful results. You have no trouble with focusing at all, so don't be concerned because you're using an FTZ adapter and it's an F lens and it's not a Z mount that there's going to be some compromise in its performance. I found no compromise in its performance in comparison to any other Z lenses I have, or that Sigma or the Tanikas or anything else I'm using. FTZ adapter is very, very efficient and works incredibly well. Just have a reasonably modern lens. This is maybe 5 years old now, I think, this lens, and I bought it only, let's say 6 months ago or less, and I got it for $4,000 Australian, and when you consider that new they were like $8,000 to $9,000, well, that's a real bargain now. And I can assure you when the long zooms for Z come out, they're not going to be a couple of $1,000s. They're going to be closer to the 10,000 or more. So I find for temporary at the moment arrangement until something does come out in the Z line that's a long lens, this is a great option that you can use, the 200 to 400 f4. Oh yes, and just one other very minor detail I want to bring out was the use of some backup protection for dropping it. So here you see I have a very comfortable, soft, springy neck strap. It's a camera strap, and I have some very capable connections onto it, and I find that if I put this now onto the camera, it gives me a lot of safety and protection from dropping it. So just connect it up well on something sturdy and strong, have it around your neck if you're hand holding, and that's the context here, we're hand holding, then that way you can never worry about dropping your camera and then smashing the whole lot, because you've invested a lot of money, and so a small item like this can make all the difference between coming home at the end of the day with both good photos and a good quality camera lens, or having a drop on the ground and smash the whole lot. So don't be scared to get some decent connections and decent accessories to make the usableness of it very practical and comfortable. And appreciate when you've got this on, and if you have it on in the correct position, it's very comfortable, and you can carry the camera around with you a long time. You can spend all day with it for hours because your body, whole torso, is supporting the weight, not just your hands. So I don't care how big a man you are and how strong you might think you are, this thing is going to drive you insane in about half an hour. You're going to want to get rid of it and put it down if you're trying to hold it in your hands the whole time. So having some support, something to take the pressure off and stress off your body, well, that's a really good idea, not only for your general health and well-being, but also for your love of actually doing the photography, because the joy can wane really quickly when you're in pain and discomfort.
In the wake of dawn, I see you shine. When I feel that heartbeat, I fly.